Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Event Industry News podcast with me, James Dickson, wishing you a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you join today's podcast from. I'm walking the tightrope today, everybody, because as we were just about to begin today's recording, my internet went out, and lo and behold, the engineer's van is parked on my street corner, which is never a good sign. So I'm on a 4G connection with my fingers crossed that we can get through today's podcast recording without any interruptions. Because I'm also pleased to say that it's a returning guest. Joining us from The Hague today is our good friend of the Event Industry News podcast, the CEO and founder of Conference Compass, Mr. Jelmer van Ast joins us. Jelmer, a very warm welcome back to the podcast. And a few things to talk about today. For context, as always, we're recording this late in November, the 22nd of November, to be precise. The biggest event in the world has just kicked off in the Middle East. So, we've got all that to look forward to over the coming weeks. But rather than looking forward, we're actually going to be doing a little bit of reflecting today with our guest, Jelmer van Ast, because earlier on this year, Conference Compass posted a really interesting blog that looked ahead to 2022, what they were hoping to achieve, what they would like to focus on for the year. And there were two values that Conference Compass set out at the start of the year, Jelmer, which were flexibility and adaptability, followed by three key points. Hybrid is here to stay, ensuring that participant engagement becomes the most important goal, and that smaller, more personalized events and the emergence of micro events would really be something that we would see. So we're going to do a little bit of reflection today, as well as looking at a couple of new things that you guys have launched. So welcome back, Jelmer, first of all, and let's cast our minds back to early 2022 and this idea of really focusing on flexibility and adaptability as we came out of the back end of the pandemic. We are now almost at the end of 22, and how vehemently have you been able to stick to those values?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the reason why we set out one of those values about flexibility and adaptability is that we ourselves as a company and the industry with us, obviously were taken as everyone by surprise and as a shock when the pandemic hit. But we see now that going out of the pandemic and into the future, we as a technology company wants to offer our customers the safety of knowing that their event will go on, whatever shape or form it will take place, and that they have a tool set really to their disposal to use different models, different formats, different event design really for their various events throughout the year, whatever they want to organize them. Let's say the good old fashioned way, in person, fully in person, the COVID style, fully online, or anything in between, whether that takes place, we call it hybrid, whether that takes place at the same time. So an on-site event with an online component, or more of a linear series of events, a pre-show online deep dive, followed by the in-person, getting to meet each other and engage in person with some topical post-event courses or post-event online meetings. And we see all of that taking place, and that really fills us with joy, because our platform is used to its fullest, and it helps us help them have a stronger impact with their events, and that's what we're here for.
And it's a very sort of apt time for you and I to be speaking today, because this is, as I said, this is the 22nd of November. It's a Tuesday morning, and I've just come off the back of a week's work on the production team for Event Tech Live down in London. So, this was our first, I would say, full return to the event as we know it. In 2021, we did run the event in person, but under a certain level of self-imposed COVID restrictions to make sure that our audience felt safe and were comfortable into coming back into that live environment. So this was our first real experience of seeing things fully back to normal, but also our first experience of having that hybrid element running alongside it to ensure that people could tune in A, if they didn't want to come in person, if they weren't able to, if they still didn't feel comfortable, and B, for people who just geographically can't get to or couldn't get to London. So mentally, I'm in a good place at the moment to sort of reference some of the stuff that we're talking about. And we ran a fully virtual day on Tuesday last week, which was our final build day. And when the live event then opened on Wednesday and Thursday, we continued to have an element of virtual and streamed content and hybrid content accessible to people via a platform. So I think, like most people who, or many people who run an event that might only take place annually, we're still very much finding our feet in the hybrid world, because we only get maybe 1 or 2 chances a year to actually see what works, refine it. And I think your point of hybrid is here to stay, I think is backed up by that idea that for many organizers, we might only organize 1 or 2 major events a year. So we do have to wait for that cycle to come round again before we can continue to refine our hybrid offering, which means that personally, I think that's why it will continue for several years down the line.
Yes, absolutely. And the word hybrid in a way has been, I'm not going to say stained, but it's there's people who say, well, hybrid, hybrid doesn't work. It's too complex. There's too many moving parts. It's too expensive. And then we've had some in the event industry even say, we don't want to give people a reason not to come and fly to the event. We want those people here. We don't want to give them a really good online offering. Ooh, when I heard that, I thought, okay, there's some work to do here, because I think that tells us that that the value proposition of events, of conferences, of like physical events, there's some work to be done, and I think
Exactly,
the answers are there, but we can clearly see how the industry is trying now with everything that we've learned, sort of reinvent themselves. And I think one thing that is key, I've said it earlier in the year as well, is that it becomes more and more important for events to think properly about their value proposition. And I think more and more we're going to see that value proposition has to extend beyond the, say, 2 or 3 days of the in-person event. And event technology is key there, of course, to bring people together whenever and wherever they are. And that has given us a strong, a new sense almost of purpose. So that's really exciting. Exciting.
And you're right, because what in my own opinion, again, this is referencing, being on site last week at Event Tech Live, is knowing that there was certainly no within a couple of hours of the doors opening, it was obvious people were there in person. We had standing room only around the main stage at 11:15 a.m. on day 1 last week. We had to put out the wireless headsets that we had put aside for day 2. We were breaking them out on day 1 to satisfy demand for the amount of people who wanted to stand around the stages. And that to me said that, the audience, the in-person audience, was there. They were there with a hunger and an appetite to be there, to learn, to tune in. So any worry that an organizer has got of, well, if I offer it hybrid, people may not come, I think we can maybe not tear it up and throw that idea out the window, but my analogy is always football and soccer. People will still go to a stadium to watch the match in person, and they can also choose to watch it at home. Just because we broadcast sports on TV doesn't mean that the stadiums are empty. That there are still sellout audiences there. People have that hunger and that desire to be within that community, and that's the feedback that I've seen already from last week is very much been along those lines, that the people who were there in person loved being there, and there was nothing that can replicate that. But going on to what you were saying, the hybrid element is going to give us an extension to that live event by having that hybrid element, by recording all of the sessions, by making that content available on demand afterwards, by having a platform there that was allowing us to run a hybrid event as well, gives us that luxury of being able to extend the event beyond the 2 days that it was in London last week.
Yes, absolutely. And clearly being in person, there's the event experience, which is much more experiential, much more emotional. All your senses are being triggered by being in that room, hearing the sound from the stage, being among people with a proper, lighting of the stage and the audience, and that brings me always in a mood to be fully present and and learn much more, in fact, and get many more ideas that then I can use to connect with people when I walk out of the room again, turning that into a conversation around the coffee table and into sometimes lifelong new connections that I make. And it's event technology or technology in general that that is there not to be in the way, but to be there, let's say, always present to help you get that done, to meet the right people, to follow up in the right way, to prepare yourself for the event by knowing who you want to meet or which sessions you want to attend. And that's really the purpose of event tech in my view, to
And,
be
and
enabling.
maybe this is an appropriate moment to maybe talk about a development within your own organization, the Flock Live. You were
Yeah.
telling me off air about this new element that you brought to the table, which is very much about bringing audiences together. So why don't we bring that into the conversation here and tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about
sure.
this new Flock Live element that you've developed?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've rebranded our platform and we're calling it Flock Live now, to also really as a testament to our vision and mission, really to help our customers, organizers, owners, really, of communities with events that drive those communities, like medical, scientific organizations and corporates, to help those communities flock live, like come together in a live fashion, whether that live means online or on site. It's both live with real human interactions. And we facilitate that with our platform. And it really brings everything we've done in our tenure before COVID, with everything we've done during COVID, now together in a real great unified platform. That indeed, it does no longer matter if you want to invite your audiences for the in-person part or the online component that you have, or the online event you have pre and or post the on-site experience. And we've made that much easier for our customers to organize and set up smaller events as well. So not only we have made the user interface so much easier that they can do it without our support, which is always, of course, a much more cost-effective way for our customers. But on top of that, we've introduced a subscription model that makes it easier and much more cost-effective to organize a series of events on the basis of that license that they purchase from us. So we really have, what we said at the beginning of the year, I think we really stayed true to that. We enable audiences to come flock live together, no matter where they're from. And we're making it much easier for our customers to organize smaller events as well, and use that year round to engage their community wherever they are. That's exciting.
And one thing that sprung to mind there is that, again, for a period of time, we made the mistake collectively, I think, of thinking that a hybrid event meant that you had your event platform for your virtual attendees, and in-person attendees were just there in the room. And something that, again, I've learned and realized just in recent weeks is that people who are in the room, in the exhibition hall or the conference center, can still access that hybrid platform as part of their in-person experience. There's no exclusivity there. There's no line that says, sorry, you're attending virtually, so you use this, and you're in person, so you have to use this. You can use the same platform for the people who are there and who aren't there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that holds for speakers as well. So I've been at the ICA Congress a couple of weeks ago in Krakow, and that was a great moment as well to meet a lot of friends from the industry again. And a couple of speakers were dialing in remotely. And at first I had to say, I'm like, okay, am I going to sit in this audience to look at a screen and see a speaker who's dialing in? But that was actually really well done, because it was sort of an interaction between the host on stage and the speaker online, and the whole dynamic just worked well. And it was still a great experience to see that from sitting in the audience and then connecting with the other members of the audience afterwards. So I think that it opens up a lot of creative ways of not just bringing the audiences together, or at least giving them access to the same content, but also to work more cleverly with your speakers and even your industry partners.
Well, and the question I ask those is, why shouldn't it be okay? Because on the one hand, as organizers, we're happy to stream content out and ask our audience to sit and watch it remotely. So why is it not okay to bring a speaker in remotely and have the audience in person?
Yeah.
It's just the
Yeah.
flip side of the coin.
Yeah.
Why not do it that way? We did it a couple of times last week. I've seen it at other events where people have been dialed in remotely into a room to engage with somebody in there actually in the room, and it can work brilliantly. I ran a conference a few months ago where there should have been a 2-person presentation. One person was stuck. There were train strikes. They dialed in remotely. Their colleague was able to get there, and so they ran a 2-person session with a PowerPoint presentation on a screen and another screen with the person's video link on there, and it actually worked really, really well. And the one thing actually that came away from that is that the audience said it was actually in some respects more interesting having that dynamic there, and seeing that they were able to do that and we were able to do that in the room, for that audience. There can be it's about adding different tastes and flavors to your lineup, isn't it? And adding different elements to keep it interesting.
Yeah, and so that's the toolbox I talked about, and that agility and adaptability. It just opens up a lot of new ways to be creative in the way you create the most impact for your audience with your events.
The point number 3 that you made in your blog, and by the way, anybody, if you want to go to conferencecompass.com, and I'm sure there may be with the rebrand, there may be new URLs coming, but for the time being, go to conferencecompass.com, go to their blog, and you can actually read this blog in full that we're referencing today. And I would recommend that you go and do that, because this was stuff that was laid out at the start of 2022 by Jelmer and his team, and it's a great moment to sort of reflect on that. And it would be useful for people to read that who work in this industry, and maybe they use that as a reference point for their own reflections on what they've achieved. And that brings me to talking about point 3 in that blog, which was that smaller, more personalized events, the emergence of micro events. And you mentioned this subscription model that you're going to bring in, Jelmer, or that you have brought in to aid these. Have you, looking back now from the start of the year to now, have you really seen the emergence of these micro events that you thought may come about? Has that manifested itself?
Yes, absolutely. I think micro events, what do you call a micro event or a smaller event? But we've seen a number of those. For instance, our platform has been used earlier, before the pandemic, mostly for the larger annual congresses and the subspecialty conferences that takes place during the year. Usually hundreds of people, thousands of people getting together. Now our customers are using this platform as well for their smaller events throughout the year, like a webinar series or some smaller regional meetings as well, with perhaps 100 attendees, and that's something that is really really flourished and is enabling. Also, we've seen how on our platform delegates of the conference, or speakers and audience members, get together in one-to-one meetings through the platform really easily, to have their meetings, micro events, if you like, meetings about specific topics, or industry partners organizing roundtable events as well, to get people together on a certain topic, like campfire sessions. And at scientific conferences, a big thing is posters. Scientific posters is something that is perhaps a bit special to scientific scientific technology and medical events, but it's a very key element in the sharing of knowledge, early access knowledge that has not yet been published in a peer-reviewed journal, but is there already at an event with a poster, for quick sort of feedback from the audience. And we're supporting that as well in poster rooms, where you can have a number of people joining the poster presenter to ask questions about the poster and to have an interactive demonstration. And that really helps advance science.
And I can actually back that up with some sort of personal understanding of that. One of my two brothers is a doctor of geology at Royal Holloway University, just outside of London, and he travels all over the world to scientific conferences. And since the pandemic, a lot of those conferences, he's told me, have gone online using virtual events platforms. And the poster element that you've just highlighted is something that he has done for years. He regularly goes to these with a poster presentation in order to present findings of a particular study or project that they've been working on. And so I know from what he's told me the value of those particular poster sessions and how effective they have been able to be through the online community. Several of their major conferences in his industry have remained online because they worked so effectively during the pandemic when they were unable to travel, that despite restrictions being lifted, they've remained online exclusively because it's a much more effective way of getting the community together without them having to travel distances. Some of these conferences, he's based in London. One that he went to every year was in Tokyo. Another one was in San Francisco. And so now they've retained not a hybrid, but actually a fully virtual angle to some of these conferences because of the effectiveness of the platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that goes to the effectiveness of certain sessions and presentations, where you make it more accessible for participants to choose what they want to see and even switch between sessions more easily than when you go and sit in a session and maybe feel a little uncomfortable leaving and joining another session. To also view what you've missed later because everything is recorded, and to much easier ask questions, something that's typically really scary for people to raise their hand and stand up and ask the question when the rest of the room may have their thoughts about, or at least that's in your mind, like maybe it's a stupid question. But to type your question and to have the moderator select it, that's a much more accessible way. So we see a lot of that engagement. And 2 weeks ago, we had a huge conference, a lung health conference on our platform. Thousands of lung healthcare professionals joining in I think there were 12 parallel sessions and hundreds of people per room. And that event was, for the third time in a row, completely online. And it worked brilliantly, exactly for those reasons. Knowledge sharing is actually something that works beautifully online. The other parts work more effectively in person. Now, when the pandemic is over, really, and those conferences are making up their mind, those organizers, are we going back in person with all the benefits, but also barriers for entry and perhaps barriers for engagement? Do we keep it online? Well, we see how that's going to unfold. On our part, we continue also pushing our technology to make it easier for people on site to interact. So, for instance, those old-fashioned poster presentations, they can also be digitalized. So you have a screen with the poster being presented, where you more easily can also approach the speaker, contact the speaker, the poster presenter, if they're not standing next to their poster, to come and meet you at their poster for some Q&A, and help creating more engaging interactions there too.
Well, the link sharing element, I think, is something, again, until you see it actually in action and you've participated in an event through a virtual event platform, you don't realize subtleties and the smaller impacts that they can have. And one that I've noticed is link sharing. If you're at an in-person conference, we've all been there at the end of a session when the presenter wraps up their conference session and says, "Thank you very much for watching my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like more information, here's my website on screen. Here is my email address on screen." How many people actually take the time to note that down? How many people actually write down the email address? one of the big benefits is link sharing in the virtual world, is that you can post a link into the chat function on the virtual event platform, and straight away people's inclination, if they see a link, is to click it. They see it pop up. Oh, I'll click that. Oh, it's a document. Great. I'll save that document. Oh, it's the email address. I'll save that email address. I think there is a subtlety to people seeing a link and being able to just click it instantly, that until you see it in action, you don't realize how valuable that small element is when you can apply it straight into, a chat window.
True. And for the physical conference, our authors, our speakers can include a little QR code on their slide. People take out our app, scan the QR code, takes them straight to the presentation, to the poster, and get access to the content and the additional sort of resources like links to the speaker profiles. And we support our speakers to record an introduction video. So to give a little sort of short, like YouTube short, like a short video of what this presentation is about, which is very useful in preparing yourself to determine what it is you wanna attend for the full duration, but also afterwards to catch up and be like, oh yes, this presentation was about that, to refresh your mind. So there's all these things that I think can enhance the in-person experience with adding a little digital flavor to it. Things that you use daily when you use Instagram or YouTube or on social media to access content.
I love the phrase
really
as well.
exciting.
An in-person event with a digital flavor. I do like
Yeah,
that. I like
that's
that.
it.
I've
I
got
think
one
that's
eye
what
on time.
hybrid really is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one eye on the clock today, everybody, because Jelmer's very kindly sort of squeezed us into a window of opportunity that he's got today. So I know that you need to get off for other commitments, but before we let you go, I'm keen to just turn our attention briefly to the future. You've mentioned this. You've called it a rebrand, the launch of Flock Live. Let's just clarify that for people so that they know what to expect in the next few months, maybe, and into 2023. Is that a full rebrand where slowly the Conference Compass brand will be removed and it will be replaced by this? How will it actually physically be presented to people, and what's the timeline for that?
Yeah, great. So our product's called Flock Live. Our company is still Conference Compass. It's Flock Live by Conference Compass, and we'll see how we perhaps keep those brands side by side or move it over. That's to be seen. Our customers are all with their backends, which we now call our Flock Studios. They're all on Flock Live, so it's all already rolled out and being used. All our new customers just go on Flock Live straight away, and what they're going to see is, besides our very nice Flock Live logo, which you'll see when you have an opportunity, and they'll just get to experience the same platform as before, but much more easier to use and utilize for a variety of events. And that's really that's not just what we've done in 2022, but it's something we keep on pushing moving forward. Like I said, to make it easier for our clients to organize a whole series of events. It doesn't matter if they're small or huge, anything in between, where they can engage their communities, whether they participate online, on-site, or in a mixture of them. I think that's key to the future of our industry, to offer that flexibility, that adaptability at a very affordable rate, with a professional team on our side that can help our customers set up and support those events on a case-by-case basis, whatever they prefer, and that's really where we are. We hope to. Our mission is to have a positive impact ultimately on how science, healthcare, and other professions are being pushed forward to invent new things and have an impact on, for instance, the people that get better treatments, because healthcare is moving forward. The same applies to technology, science, and all other subjects. And anything we can do to help those doctors, scientists, professionals to better connect with the right people at the right time and to follow up more effectively, that means progress. And then that's really what we're here for.
We've been talking today on the podcast to the CEO and founder of Conference Compass, Mr. Jelmer van Ast, who has joined us from their base in The Hague in the Netherlands this morning. Jelmer, it's been lovely to speak to you again. If anybody listening to this wants to find out more about some of the items that we've talked about today, particularly that blog, which gave us really sort of the start point for today's conversation, please do head over to conferencecompass.com. And of course, keep your eyes peeled, no doubt, for more information coming in the further months about Flock Live by Conference Compass, the rebranded virtual events platform that Jelmer and his team deliver. So please do go and check out what these guys have got to offer. And maybe early in 2023, we'll see another blog on the website, Jelmer, looking ahead to what we may see next year. And it becomes a bit of an annual forecast of what you may see happening. Because as we discussed earlier on in today's conversation, hybrid is very much here to stay. And it will take, it won't happen overnight. I think it will take us, the next few years to really sort of fully understand and for us to be able to adapt individually our own events to make them best suited for a particular hybrid offering. There is no one silver bullet. There is no one size fits all for all organizers. It will take time for everybody, slowly but surely, I think, to adapt, to integrate hybrid in the best way for their particular event. So long may the conversations continue, Jelmer. I've no doubt that we'll join you again in 2023 to pick up this conversation again and see how things are developed. But for now, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, James. Thank you for having me, and you're very welcome.
No problem. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we finish off today, everybody. If you're listening to this via your podcast audio platform, don't forget to head over to eventindustrynews.com. You can check out the latest news, features, supplements, special features, and of course the legendary Event Industry News A to Z supplier directory. If you're an organizer working in the events industry and you are looking for a product or service, be it physical, digital, an event platform, whatever it may be, head over to the A to Z supplier directory, where you will find a comprehensive list of suppliers within the events industry. If you are already on the eventindustrynews.com website, having a look around and watching this podcast as a video today, thank you very much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to see you. Don't forget to go in the opposite direction and make sure that you subscribe to our audio versions of all the podcasts wherever you get your podcasts from. We're really easy to find. Which brings us to the end of today's episode. Our thanks again to the CEO and founder of Conference Compass and of course Flock Live, Mr. Jelmer van Ast. My name's James Dickson, and that brings us to the end of another episode of the Event Industry News podcast. Goodbye, everybody.